I will never forget that evening. Amanda and I had built what seemed like the perfect life together. Our 7 years of marriage had given us a beautiful suburban home in Chicago, successful careers, and the envy of our friends. At least that was the story we told ourselves. But over the past year, since Amanda's big promotion, something had changed between us. The woman I married was disappearing, replaced by someone I barely recognized. That night, during a heated argument over dinner, she spoke words that changed everything. "Intimacy is off the table until you obey me." If you are watching this story right now, let me know where you are viewing from in the comments below. Hit that like and subscribe button if you have ever had to make a difficult decision to save yourself from a toxic relationship. Amanda and I first crossed paths at a tech conference in San Francisco. I was presenting a new software solution my team had developed, and she was representing her marketing firm. Our eyes met across the crowded exhibition hall, and by the end of the day, we were sharing coffee and swapping industry stories. There was an instant connection that felt different from any relationship I had experienced before. She was brilliant, ambitious, and seemed genuinely interested in my work and passions. Within 3 months, we were dating long distance, and after a year, I proposed during a weekend trip to Napa Valley. When Amanda received an offer from a prestigious marketing firm in Chicago, I did not hesitate to support her. My software engineering skills were in demand anywhere, and I believed in her dreams as much as my own. We relocated, found a beautiful home in the suburbs, and settled into what I thought would be our happily ever after. The early years were everything I had hoped for in a marriage. We complemented each other, perfectly celebrating successes together and providing comfort during setbacks. I took pride in being the supportive husband who encouraged her ambitions, never feeling threatened by her success. I willingly adjusted my work schedule to accommodate her networking events. I handled more household responsibilities when her workload increased. These were not sacrifices in my mind, but investments in our partnership. Amanda would express her gratitude, often surprising me with thoughtful gifts or planning weekend getaways. We were a team facing the world together. Everything began to shift after Amanda received her promotion to marketing director. The position came with significant prestige, a corner office, and access to Chicago's elite business circles. Initially, I was her proudest cheerleader. I remember bringing champagne home the day she called with the news, planning a surprise celebration dinner with our closest friends. The changes were subtle at first, almost imperceptible. Amanda started spending more time with her new colleagues, high-powered executives who lived very different lives from ours. She would return from these gatherings with stories of luxury vacations and exclusive clubs, a hint of dissatisfaction in her voice when she looked around our comfortable but modest home. "Clint, do you think you could update your wardrobe a bit?" she asked one evening as we prepared for a company function. "These executives judge me by everything, including my husband's appearance." I laughed it off and agreed to purchase a few new items. After all, I wanted to support her career, and if dressing differently for occasional events helped, it seemed a small thing. But the requests did not stop there. Soon she was critiquing how I spoke, the stories I shared, even the way I held my fork at dinner. "You need to stop bringing up your family's farm background," she told me after one dinner with her colleagues. "It makes you sound unsophisticated. Just stick to talking about your tech projects." The woman who had once loved hearing stories about my childhood on my grandparents' farm in Minnesota now seemed embarrassed by that part of my identity. Each time I expressed concern about these changes, Amanda would dismiss them as necessary adaptations to her new professional environment. The first true warning sign appeared about 18 months after her promotion. Amanda insisted on approving my outfits before any event connected to her work. What began as suggestions transformed into directives. Clothes I had worn for years suddenly disappeared from our closet, replaced by items she had selected without consulting me. "Your social media presence reflects on me now," she declared one Sunday morning, scrolling through my Facebook page. "We need to clean this up immediately." Before I could object, she deleted photos of fishing trips with my college buddies, claiming they were too juvenile for a husband of a marketing director. She untagged me from posts she deemed unprofessional and drafted a new bio, emphasizing my connection to her company. Amanda began screening my friendships, determining which ones were valuable to our future. My longtime friend Jake, who worked as a mechanic, was deemed unsuitable company. When I pushed back and met him for beers anyway, Amanda withheld affection for days afterward. "I cannot believe you would embarrass me like that," she said coldly. "If you want things to return to normal in our bedroom, you will need to make better choices." It was the first time she had explicitly used intimacy as leverage, but it would not be the last. Still, I rationalized her behavior as temporary stress from adapting to her new role. I told myself that once she felt secure in her position, the woman I married would return. The financial control began innocuously. Amanda suggested combining our accounts for efficiency despite us having maintained separate accounts alongside a joint one for household expenses throughout our marriage. Since I earned nearly as much as she did in my senior developer role, I had never worried about money. But soon after consolidating accounts, Amanda implemented a budget that required me to account for every dollar spent. "You do not understand the importance of financial planning for our future," she would say whenever I questioned why I needed approval for basic purchases. This is how successful couples manage their finances. Despite my substantial contributions to our household income, I found myself with an allowance like a child. Major purchases required Amanda's explicit permission, even when the money came from my earnings. When I needed a new laptop for work, she insisted on being present to ensure I did not waste money on unnecessary features. The location tracking began after I arrived home 30 minutes late from a work emergency. Amanda had installed a tracking app on my phone for safety reasons and would call demanding explanations if I deviated from my expected routes. My privacy vanished as she established a system of constant accountability. The lowest point before the ultimate confrontation came during a holiday party at her firm. Amanda had been unusually tense in the days leading up to the event, drilling me on appropriate conversation topics and repeatedly warning me not to embarrass her. During dinner, I engaged in what I thought was harmless conversation with her colleague about a recent camping trip. Amanda's face darkened as I spoke. Later, in front of several of her coworkers in a quieter corner of the venue, she grabbed my arm tightly. "You sound like an absolute idiot talking about sleeping in a tent," she hissed. "These people summer in the south of France. They are not impressed by your little outdoor adventures. Just smile and keep quiet for the rest of the night, please." The public humiliation burned worse than any private criticism. I saw the uncomfortable glances from witnesses, their pity adding to my shame. I retreated into silence for the remainder of the evening, playing the role of the supportive, quiet spouse, while something inside me began to crack. The breaking point came after a dinner party we hosted for Amanda's boss and several key team members. She had been planning the event for weeks, curating every detail from the menu to the playlist. Nothing was left to chance, including my role for the evening. "Just serve drinks, make basic small talk, and let me handle the rest," she instructed as we prepared. "And wear the blue shirt I laid out, not the gray one you seem to prefer." The evening progressed according to her plans until Amanda's boss asked about my work. Feeling momentarily valued, I enthusiastically described a new project using artificial intelligence to improve accessibility features. I noticed Amanda tensing beside me, but continued, encouraged by her boss's genuine interest. "That sounds fascinating, Clint," her boss said. "We could use that kind of innovation in our marketing approaches." Before I could respond, Amanda interjected. "Oh, Clint tends to exaggerate the importance of his projects. It is really just basic programming, nothing revolutionary." The conversation awkwardly shifted, but the damage was done. I felt invisible, my professional accomplishments dismissed by the person who should have been my greatest advocate. I maintained composure through dinner, mechanically fulfilling my role while something hardened inside me. After the guests departed, Amanda's carefully constructed facade crumbled. She slammed dishes into the sink as I quietly began cleaning up. "I cannot believe you tried to dominate the conversation like that," she fumed. "You made me look like I was married to some tech nerd who cannot read a room." When I pointed out that her boss had asked me directly about my work, her anger escalated. "This is exactly the problem, Clint. You do not understand how these situations work. There are rules to these interactions, rules that determine our future." What followed was a 30-minute monologue detailing my failures as a husband, culminating in a written list of non-negotiable expectations for my future behavior. The items ranged from specific clothing requirements to scripted responses for social situations, even dictating which of my family members were acceptable to mention in conversation. When I expressed disbelief at the extensive nature of her demands, Amanda delivered the ultimatum that would change everything. Intimacy is off the table until you obey me. I need to see consistent compliance before things return to normal between us." The word obey hung in the air between us. Not cooperate or compromise or any term that might suggest partnership. Obey, as though I were a disobedient child or pet, rather than her equal partner in life. "You cannot be serious," I said, struggling to recognize the woman standing before me. "I am absolutely serious," she replied, her voice eerily calm. "This is what our relationship needs right now. You will thank me when my promotion to vice president comes through next quarter." She retreated to the guest bedroom that night, leaving me alone with thoughts that kept me awake until dawn. As I stared at the ceiling, memories surfaced of earlier warning signs. I had dismissed her increasing criticism, the subtle ways she had isolated me from friends and family, her use of affection as a reward for compliance. Morning brought no reconciliation. When I attempted to discuss the situation over breakfast, Amanda doubled down on her position. "I do not have time to argue about this," she said, gathering her things for work. "The list is on the counter. I expect the first items to be addressed by the time I get home." With the house to myself, I wandered through rooms that suddenly felt unfamiliar. In our home office, I noticed Amanda had left her laptop open. I had never invaded her privacy before, respecting boundaries even as she eliminated mine. But something compelled me to look. What I discovered shattered any remaining illusions. A document titled "Clint Improvement Plan" detailed a 3-month strategy to correct problematic behaviors and align spouse with career objectives. It read like a corporate restructuring plan, with measurable goals and progress indicators. Worse were the email exchanges with her friends. "Just managing the husband situation," she wrote to her college roommate. "He is becoming a liability as I move up. Too Midwest, nice for these circles. Working on either upgrading or replacing him, lol." The text messages with her boss contained subtle flirtations and references to private meetings outside work hours. Photos in her cloud storage showed her with Jake, her handsome colleague from the legal department, in situations far too intimate for professional relationships. The timeline of these photos coincided exactly with the beginning of her emotional withdrawal from our marriage. Sitting there, surrounded by evidence of her manipulation and betrayal, something fundamental shifted inside me. The fog of confusion and self-doubt lifted, replaced by clarity. This was not love. It was not even respect. It was ownership, pure and simple, and I had been permitting it through my silence. I realized in that moment that no promotion, no social status, no relationship was worth surrendering my dignity and identity. The journey back to myself would begin that very day. I did not act impulsively despite the overwhelming urge to pack a bag and walk away immediately. Instead, I began a methodical process of reclaiming my life and preparing for independence. My first step was reaching out to a therapist, specializing in emotional abuse, using a private credit card. Amanda did not monitor. Dr. Marshall confirmed what I had begun to suspect. I was experiencing a textbook case of emotional and psychological abuse. "What you are describing is a systematic effort to control and diminish you," she explained during our first session. "The financial constraints, isolation from support networks, criticism of core aspects of your identity. These are classic control tactics." With professional support validating my experience, I consulted with a lawyer to understand my rights and options. Given that we had no children and had maintained relatively separate finances before Amanda's recent consolidation of accounts, a clean break seemed possible. Document everything, the lawyer advised. Dates, times, specific incidents. Copy any communications that demonstrate controlling behavior. Secure your personal documents and establish financial independence as soon as possible. I followed this advice meticulously, creating a secure digital record of Amanda's behavior. I retrieved important documents from our home safe when she was at work, birth certificate, passport, car title, and stored them in a safety deposit box she could not access. I opened a new bank account at a different bank and arranged for a portion of my paycheck to be deposited there. The most healing step was reconnecting with friends Amanda had deemed unsuitable. I met Jake, my mechanic friend, for lunch, confiding some of what I had been experiencing. "Man, we have all been worried about you," he admitted. "You just disappeared from our lives, And when we did see you, something was off. You seemed